Around the advent of the iPhone, I developed one of the first apps to help diabetics track blood glucoses, blood sugars, that sort of thing. And the early success of that, we saw about 50,000 downloads of that app. I realized my time in the clinical setting was over and that I would probably venture into marketing and software and things of that nature. I realized I could probably help a lot more people in the local setting. I figured stuff out with regards to marketing and building lists and being able to communicate a little bit more one-to-one through emerging technologies than I could one-to-one basis inside of a clinical setting.
In addition to being a podcast host, I'm also a small business attorney, mostly providing legal services in New York and New Jersey. With over 3 decades of experience, we can handle most transactional issues. So if you're watching the show and you encounter some sort of legal issue, reach out to us and visit our website, beinhakerlaw.com. Thanks for tuning into the show and for continuing to support us. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the show. I'm Mitch Beinhaker, your host. Always good to bring great guests on the show and have good conversations. That's really, I guess, what podcasting is all about. Drew's down in Philadelphia. We're going to talk to him. I won't hold that against him, though, being a New Yorker, since we just pummeled the Sixers. So, yeah, at the parade yesterday and everything. Tell you stories about that. But before we get started, I always tell everybody, if you're listening on your favorite directory, leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, because we're trying to get more and more people over to the video channel, go over there, subscribe, like us, follow us, share us, so we can keep connecting with cool guests. I remind everybody that the information we share in these episodes is for informational purposes only. It's not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. So anything you listen to or you see Drew and I talk about, or anybody else for that matter, make sure before you do so, make any decisions, you talk to local licensed professionals. Also, I failed to mention, I've been mentioning this more and more, my son moved to Texas, lives in Fort Worth, so we started a sports podcast. We're about 6 episodes in, I think. So if you want to check us out, it's called Benches and Bleachers. It is on YouTube, and mostly it's been about the Knicks and a little bit of football lately, but now we'll be moving on to other things. So, Drew, thanks for joining me on the show. And we're going to talk about marketing today, right? But why don't we start with your story, your background?
Yeah, despite what your eyes may be telling you or what your ears might be hearing, I'm not an Instagram model. I am from Philadelphia, and I guess our claim to fame is that we had some good players from Villanova that ended up winning the championship.
Made
there.
Their way to New York.
Yeah, so
Thank you for that.
I'm a recovering Sixers fan. Actually, I don't even follow the Sixers, but congratulations nonetheless.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Really privileged to meet your acquaintance and
Cool.
being able to jump on here, and congratulations on your new podcast.
Appreciate it.
Very brief background. I actually spent 30 years in healthcare as a hyperbaric wound care nurse, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, other than around the advent of the iPhone, I developed one of the first apps to help diabetics track blood glucoses, blood sugars, that sort of thing. And the early success of that, we saw about 50,000 downloads of that app. I realized my time in the clinical setting was over. Yes. And that I would probably venture into marketing and software and things of that nature. And fast forward a number of years, that's exactly what happened. Being able to help.
With the diabetic thing, was it one of those devices that stick on your arm and then communicates with your phone, or not? Not at that point.
Not at that point. It was a very rudimentary, I would say, even a journal type of application.
So people had to enter the data.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to do that. And, this is the early days of the iPhone, and the applications are very simple.
Yeah.
But the lesson therein was, through emerging technologies, you could reach and really touch the lives of a lot of people, which was what my takeaway was. And after the acquisition of that software, I realized I could probably help a lot more people in the local setting and I figured stuff out with regards to marketing and building lists and being able to communicate a little bit more one-to-one through emerging technologies than I could, on a one-to-one basis inside of a clinical setting.
What's your background? Is it marketing? Is it technology?
It's both. Yeah, it's both. I'm an autodidactic learner, so I learned very quickly. I taught myself to program, not with what they have today, but I studied biochemistry and marketing as a side, and
That's a combination.
yeah, it's kind of the weirdest combination ever. And I would say I'm a lifelong learner. If I had, when I was going to college, if I had the internet and as we know it today, I don't know that I'd ever really want to graduate. It's just so much opportunity
Just
to
teach
learn.
yourself nowadays, right? I mean, everything's out there. You want to do this, you look it up, you find a YouTube video or a course or
Yeah,
somebody, and you learn it. Yeah, it's crazy, the availability of information. Yeah.
it's tremendous. Yeah.
And now we have
So,
AI tools that kind of do it for you, right? They go out and find the information for you, put it together and digest it and give it back to you. And then you can have a starting platform, right? It's just crazy.
yeah. If it does it all for us, I could just go to, Knicks and Sixers games all the time
Right.
and, do that kind of stuff full time,
Exactly.
so yeah, that's kind of where, where we are today is a number of years have passed. I started a marketing agency and that kind of bifurcated into developing courses, teaching courses, selling things online, and building out more softwares to solve problems that a lot of our customers were experiencing.
Now, has it always been in healthcare or has it been in various industries?
More in the local marketing space these days, right?
Okay.
So being able to prospect and help local businesses build lists and be able to communicate with people a little bit more effectively. We spent a lot of time in the newsletter part of the world. I would say once I got into this space, pretty much everybody was hanging out their shingle as a social media expert and
Right.
that sort of thing. And it became increasingly more difficult to prospect and get through the front door to
Yeah.
actually meet with
A lot of
decision
noise,
makers.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of noise. Yeah.
Yeah. So we figured something out with these local newsletters, right? If you approach businesses as a media company, right, much like a podcaster would,
Right.
you have the opportunity to connect with these businesses on a level that they want. If you lead with, hey, I'd like to feature you in my newsletter that, by the way, reaches 17,000 people here in the Pottstown, Pennsylvania area,
Right.
right? And the population is 21,000 people. You pretty much have the entire audience, the people that are inside of Pottstown who might be interested in dining at your restaurant or,
Right.
receiving whatever your product or service is. And that helped us foster relationships. We figured something out in that manner. So we started doing that more and more often, building out
Yeah.
these assets. Think of it as like there's a McDonald's in every corner or a Wawa or whatever it might be.
Right.
When you have these little assets there, you have access, and there's
Right.
access
Because
to
you're bringing them something that brings them value before you've pitched them. I mean, that's always the key, right? Show them value, bring them value before you say, "Hey, will you buy my stuff?" Now, you're actually bringing them bringing them business. How could they say no if it's something that they need or something that they could benefit from? Their ears are open at least, right?
yeah. End of story. Like that's literally what it is. And then, naturally, as we're having conversations like this, they
Yeah.
realize that you're not just trying to sell them something. You're actually, a colleague, you're a partner in this situation. You can deliver a lot of success, could put a lot of money into their pocket by harnessing that attention, those eyeballs and that sort of thing. And then naturally, business starts, happening from there.
Yeah. No, I think that a lot of people don't realize like how people kind of see through you, right? So the old days of prospecting and marketing and sales, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're still disingenuous salespeople, but I think a lot of people today kind of see through that, and they are very insulated. It's very hard to get through the gatekeeper. You don't just make phone calls. People block your calls. They don't recognize the calls. Text messages, emails, or whatever. But if you're transparent and you're truly bringing value, nobody expects it to be completely free, right? They're suspicious when it is too free and it is too much information. But I think now you're building a relationship, and I think a lot of people really miss that from the sales and marketing side. And I don't think it's that difficult, like you said, if you learn and you educate yourself and do stuff. But clearly, people aren't doing it because that's why they hire you,
Right.
to do that stuff. So what do you think is the biggest mistake that you see a lot of people making? Is it not building a list? Is it not, marketing in the right place? Like, well, what are they doing, guys? Is it a content game? Always curious as to everybody's opinion about this.
Yeah, it's kind of parallel to that, right? So I spent a lot of time in the in development and in technology,
Yeah.
and a lot of my colleagues, they're developing softwares and they're building some really cool stuff, but they don't spend time on the audience part of it first, which I think is a big time saver for a lot of my colleagues, right? So
Right.
they're really good at the AI, they're really good at the programming. And the biggest mistake that they make is, they don't create a wait list or an opt-in to see if there's even an interest in that
Right.
that type of
Is there an
product or
audience
software.
out there even, right?
And if you did that first and you build a list of 100 people or 500 people, and by the way, micro SaaSes, they do exceptionally well. I would always say, like, people, they kind of snicker and they look, they raise their noses at, a list of 100 people or a
Right.
list of 500 people. And I would say, what I would say to that is, the next Thanksgiving or the next Sunday dinner that you have, do yourself a favor and invite 100 people or 500 people to your house for
Right.
dinner,
Yeah.
and let me know if that's a lot of people or not. Right?
Right. That's a
It's a
good,
lot
that's a
of
good
people.
exercise.
It's a great exercise, a lesson in humility and realizing that, 500 people giving you $10 a month or $100 a month is pretty significant compared to working an 8-hour day at a restaurant, standing on your feet. So building a list of 100 people often becomes 200 people, becomes 500 people, becomes 1,000 people. Before you know it,
Right.
you've got 5 to 10 to 15,000 people, and it could, deliver a wildly successful venture, business that way.
Yeah.
So back to your question, I think the advice is, start with a wait list and say, hey, I'm
Right.
thinking about building this thing.
Build an audience. Right.
Build that audience first, and then serve them up with your very best content, your very best software, your very best newsletter that you possibly can.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about the newsletter angle is this: local people, they're genuinely interested in what's happening locally. Like, listen to how we started off this conversation today.
Yeah.
The New York Knicks versus
Right.
Philly, right? The Knicks are your area, the Philly is my area. People are interested in business, what's happening locally, where they live, where they play, where they pray,
Right.
what they pay. And guess what? All those people, they have one of these devices, right? They've
Yeah.
got an iPhone, they've got an Android device, they've got
Right.
access to technology. They use technology.
Yeah.
So even though you're delivering superficial type of information that people want to access, that kind of stuff from a local newsletter,
Right.
they're also interested in their problems being solved with technology, your software, whatever your product or your service actually is.
Right.
So there's lesson.
Yeah, no, and I think building an audience is, following people that follow you, or people that, they're not all going to be interested in what you offer, and they may not be interested in it now.
Right.
So you need to build like a keep in touch program. There's a book I always talk about called The Referral of a Lifetime, and it's about building a keep in touch. You've read the book. It's a short book.
Yes.
It's a good parable, but I think a lot of what people don't realize in your example, right? 100 people, 200, 300 people. And I went through this when I first started in sales. I came out of law school. I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I was like, I'm not doing law. It sucks, whatever. And I went into sales, and my dad was in the insurance business, and I felt that I needed to learn that, right? And it was a different world then, right? I didn't even know. I never heard of the internet when I came out of law school. It was 92. It was just getting started, right? So, but what I did learn was, the whoever the sales trainer was at the time, he sits me down and he gives me, they called it Project 100, I think it was called, or Project 150. And the exercise was, make a list of any and everybody who knows who you are, right? Maybe you haven't been in touch with them, maybe you have, whatever. And I think if we try hard, most of us can get between 150 and 250 people who recognize your name, who say, oh, I know who Drew Griffin is. I saw him in college, or I went to high school with him, or whatever.
Right.
And the referral of a lifetime brings it out that those 150, 250 people also know the same amount of people. And it's a multiplier effect. So if you're keeping in touch with them, you're technically reaching, because they're all talking to people, we're all interacting. And if it's interesting and if it's valuable information, some people talk, not everybody, but some people talk. And it has a way of, getting around. Right.
Yes.
So if you had 150 people for Thanksgiving, I'm sure most of them would talk about it. Say, I was at this crazy Thanksgiving dinner. It was 150 people. It was nuts. And everybody would hear about it and people would hear about your name. So I think people are really short-sighted when they say, well, how am I going to build a list like that? Well, they kind of do have the list because they know the people and those people know. I think the math in that book is like, if you know 250 people, just the second level is like 62,000 people that you're potentially reaching if you have good content and you keep in touch and you put it in front of them and soft sell and the whole thing. So, yeah, big.
Can be overwhelming, and
Yeah.
it brings a lot of hope for folks that like, how am I even going to do something like this? And
Right.
those numbers are very true.
Yeah. And I think now in the last, technology has exponentially grown, right, since the pandemic, right? We've all connected online. We now have these AI tools, all that kind of stuff. So the things that a small business owner could do, then in the past, they would have to hire you as a big advertising agency to do things that they couldn't even afford. People can now do.
Right.
What would you say, like the clients that are using you, like your customers, like what's their demographic? Like who's hiring you? Are they tend to be on the smaller side or bigger side or?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up because we're at this really weird junction that this technology is available to everybody.
Right.
And learning how to navigate this in such a way that doesn't put you out of a job or opportunities is the surface level fear that most people are going to run into one time or another.
Right.
Just a few weeks ago, I had an opportunity to work with a project management firm.
Okay.
And they wanted to learn a little bit more about AI. And it was literally a 10-minute conversation. It being, maybe I was a bad salesperson or whatever, but I don't think so. I think it ended up, it did result in other types of referrals. So their needs were very basic when it came to AI. And I literally just said, hey, you should be using Claude, Anthropic's Claude, to do a lot of this superficial work that needs to get done. It could have easily been a multi six-figure deal that I did with them in terms of coaching and implementation and stuff. And it ended up being about a 10 to 15 minute conversation that saved them about $500,000 in just, rudimentary work, workflows and standard operating procedures and stuff like that.
Right.
But what it did on the back end was build a level of trust where they now referred me to architecture firms and to other marketing, stuff like that, where, that money was made back in multiples thereafter.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting time where, we learn to navigate this stuff. And sometimes it's more about thought leadership as opposed to implementation and stuff like that. Why recreate the LLM or the large language model when it already exists, and you can just say, here's a better way to swing this hammer.
Right.
And when you do that, it instills a deeper relationship. We'll probably end up making more money through referrals, as you just mentioned, as well as other opportunities that they say, hey, we need to develop this particular skill within this context. Can you help us with this? And, I'd rather do that kind of stuff where we're actually moving the needle in that business versus, just collecting the dollars.
Right. Yeah, there's no question about it. Even in my profession as a lawyer, I have plenty of colleagues that'd be like, well, if you teach them how to do it, if you put out a blog article about how to form a business, if you put online courses and people are going to maybe pay a little bit, we're going to be out of business. And my feeling is that those people weren't going to be your customers anyway. Right. And if you're open and honest with them and say, listen, you don't need to make this investment in for this particular concern or goal or objective or whatever, this is a good way to do it. Then, like you said, it came back to you fivefold. I mean, and people, I think, appreciate that because they're all just trying to manage their own business.
Maybe you're getting your calendaring from one software and you're invoicing from another. Evenoo is a platform that we use as one of our sponsors to run our entire business. And there's other features like auto payments and integrations with QuickBooks. Visit evenoo.com, EVONUE.com to learn more. There's also a link in the show notes. And be sure to tell them that the Accidental Entrepreneur referred you. This podcast is brought to you by our affiliate sponsor, iEmployee. iEmployee is a virtual assistant service that hires almost anyone for any role in your company right out of the Philippines. Most roles range from $7 to $9 an hour for highly skilled and experienced VAs. And whether you need an executive assistant, social media manager, video editor, customer service, sales, you name it, they have it. We use iEmployee for our VA services, from editing and promoting the podcast to all the PR and promotion of our law firm. iEmployee acts as a virtual field supervisor on the back end with live video monitoring and reports on a daily basis with screenshots of your VA's workday, and along with complete HR and payroll duties. No more paying for overpriced and underqualified workers. There's a link in the show notes to get a 1-week free trial, and I encourage you to take advantage of it.
Find their way through all this stuff also. And and it has led to, being more helpful and telling people, and, I speak for free to the economic development corporations and everything, helping these small business owners. I give discounts for people just starting up because I know they have no money.
Right.
Maybe it's not 9 times out of 10, but I would say 7 out of 10 leads to other business, either them becoming customers, later on clients. They refer somebody who can afford my services and needs more of my service. And there's plenty of people that don't want to do it themselves. They know that their time is better spent, right, doing what they do to develop the business and to, make the food and to serve whatever, and they don't want to be doing that stuff. They want you to do it because that's a better use of their time. And those people will always hire you because they recognize the value of, lost opportunity costs to do other things that they shouldn't be doing in place of what they shouldn't be doing.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that if people just recognize, hey, it's okay to give it away, to educate people, it just makes you more emboldened, not the word's not emboldened, more, what's the word? Loyal to you, right? That they want to bring you business. They want to help you because you're helping them. I don't think that's short-sighted. I think it's smart, right?
Yeah, I think there's always opportunities that come from those types of opportunities. And when you can genuinely help them up front, sometimes it's not at a financial dollars that you're seeking inside of your business, that it does, they may not become your customer right now, but later on down the road, they do become it. And whether it's a consulting or they end up using one of our softwares that are lower cost, the attrition is always going to be there, either in the trust vertical or the dollars vertical.
Yeah, because eventually they're going to run into someone else that says, well, why do you have Drew doing all this stuff? You can just do it this way, and it's very easy, and then we can handle this other stuff. And now you've lost their trust, and they're like, well, why didn't Drew tell us that?
Yeah, being transparent that way. Hey, if you can do it better, faster, cheaper, quicker, I think that's what the affinity is right now with this whole AI type of stuff. There's always going to be a better way to go about doing it, but there's also a lot of value in understanding you have a trusted partner that says, yeah, you know what, it's probably better that you use this over here. You'll save time, energy, money.
Right.
And but no, we want to stay with you because we trust that you're going to be transparent with us and say, hey, it's time to move on when it's time to move on. And, at first, like, that's the takeaway from the medical industry is at first do no harm.
Right.
And using that Hippocratic oath and applying it to business sometimes is a good way to go about operating your business.
Yeah, no, I think that people should be using these tools because I obviously have had a lot of shows about AI. I get everyone wants to come and talk about AI, so I try not to overdo it. But the tools as they exist now, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if we're going to have a robot following us around all our life, or like a little head that comes out of our phone in a 3D thing to talk to us. But right now, they're good tools for basic stuff. They're good tools for starting points. They're very good for generating ideas if you had to put out a series of blog articles and this is where I practice, or this is what my industry is, and you want to come up with 20 topics, there you go. You don't have a blank piece of paper, right?
Right.
So it's very good for that kind of stuff. I mean, I've used it to draft things, motions and things like that, just as a, I have my own stuff, but, and then I got to put it on my format and change it and make it up to whatever. But I mean, it is what it is, but it's not the end all be all. It's not going to not yet going to do everything for us. And I also think that Drew, if you send somebody to AI, that's fine, right, for the basic stuff. But if it gets too advanced, now they don't know why things are in there. Like, you know why it's telling you to do X, Y, and Z because you're an expert and you're a professional. I know things if it comes up with a contract. I get this all the time, by the way, especially on Claude.
Yes.
People send me contracts. They're annotated. They got all kinds of things on it. But at the end of the day, the client really doesn't know why 9 out of 10 of those paragraphs are in there. They don't know
Right.
what they do. They don't know what they protect you against. They don't know why they're there. And even with, I'm talking Claude explaining what they are, and they still don't know because 33 years of law practice counts for something, right?
Yes, of course it does.
Yeah. So I think that's the one human element that's always going to be a hesitancy. Like, okay, I'm reading this, but it's not my area of expertise. I don't know. I don't have the requisite background knowledge in my head to know if the head of the computer is accurate or making assumptions or whatever. So that's the way these models work. I mean, they think like us. They just have more information.
Yeah, it does the heavy lifting of things that you don't particularly like to do or spend the time on. And I'll leave with kind of an analogy and an interesting story with regards to time and efficiency and getting things back. So we teach this course called Local Newsletter Launchpad, and we kind of teach like software people that are trying to launch things, and their agencies in their local space entirely for free. By the way, if you're interested,
we can
local,
put a link in the show notes or something.
Yeah, localnewsletterlaunchpad.com, totally free to join. So one of the problems that this solves is, building that list and potential prospects and that sort of thing. And the problem that a lot of people have with it is when you do this manually, it can take a lot of time to put an issue together. So we do this on purpose to show that the architecture, the structure of this is very important in the way that you deliver this. You're not becoming journalists, you're not becoming, writers per se or whatever, but you're aggregating and putting information in front of an audience. 17,000 people on a newsletter is evidence that people are interested in this sort of thing. So a story came back that I thought was very compelling. We taught people how to use AI to do like 90% of the heavy lifting in this. What normally would take about a 2-hour process is now down to about 10 to 15 minutes.
Wow.
So one of our students came along and said, I don't think you guys realize what you did for my life. They were diagnosed with diabetes, and their A1C level, by the way, anybody that's listening that understands diabetes, 13.0 was their A1C level, which is like dangerously high.
What's normal?
Like 4.9 to 5.6.
Very low, right?
Right. So we taught this process to break it down from 2 hours down to about 15 minutes to get an issue together. And the story they came back with was, you don't understand. I took that time that I would normally be putting my newsletter together, and I started walking, and I started exercising. I started eating, taking that 2 hours that normally would be a function within my business and stuff that I had to do, and I applied it to getting myself in shape. And they literally said, you saved my life. Because that time
about that stuff.
So AI, maybe it sounds robotic and stuff, but if you can get you to that point where you're only spending 15 minutes on a task that actually ends up generating more revenue for your business, and applying it to actually, you losing your health. You lost 125 pounds. Their A1C went from 13 down to 5.7, borderline normal. Much healthier lifestyle, more energy, all this other kind of stuff. The quality of life that people can get back by leveraging this AI on a superficial level to, actual time savings can be a big difference in people's lives. And, so hopefully that doesn't get lost in anybody, that there's true impact that some of these tools can really provide for us.
There's no question about it. And sitting behind a computer screen for 2 or 3 hours, sedentary, clearly if you're up and you're doing things, you got more freedom. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You can do things that took maybe weeks to do now that could take you minutes or hours. It's going to get faster and it's going to get quicker and
Only
stuff like
better.
that. It's interesting. So can you share, like, I know you guys have developed a lot of tools. I don't know if some of them are hardware, some of them are software, some of them are
Mhm.
software as a service. Can you share some of the things the products that you guys have developed over the years and what you're doing now with them?
Sure. So I'll give you two.
Okay.
One is kind of a risk and not even a risk in the podcast world, but we built something called Featurely.io, which
Okay.
is basically an AI interview type of process that allows us to create articles. As you know, going back and forth between potential people that you want to interview
Yeah.
can be a little bit of a pain in the butt, right? You got to go back and forth in the calendar and schedule your time, all this kind of stuff. Well, the software that we created is called Featurely.io.
Okay.
You send one link, and the interviewer is an AI agent that sounds really, really natural. And the person just clicks one button, gets interviewed by essentially the podcast host. And on the other end, it generates a beautiful looking article. The person can upload images, links, all kinds of cool stuff. And that's like level one, right? So like the way that we do it inside of our newsletters is we want to feature local businesses, give them
Right.
more time, energy, and stuff like that. So yeah, they can go through and do it at their own convenience, whether they're at the dinner table, maybe they're taking care of business in the bathroom, or 5 minutes at the end of their drive. They can just record that quick interview through their iPhone, their Android device, or
It's
their
audio
laptop.
only.
Yeah, it's audio only, and we did this on purpose because a lot of our guests, they don't want to be on camera, but it
Okay.
often leads to the next thing, which could be on camera. Like, hey, we just put you in front of 17,000 people in our newsletter. Mitch, does it make sense that we jump on Zoom or Riverside or something like that and record
Right.
a 30-minute conversation? Will get you even more attention for your business. And most of the time it converts into something very, very compelling, something like we're doing right now. And then, our most recent launch is called LoudAF. .ai, which is kind of taking a little bit of Gen Alpha's terminology to our software. Anyway, it helps the individuals that want to leverage technology to
Right.
create content at scale. Right, you put
Okay.
in one URL
Right.
of a video, it'll transcribe the video and give you like a listicle type of post that you can put on Facebook without you having to be the writer. It also creates articles, it creates images, it creates carousels, it creates all kinds of really cool stuff.
So, like, automates the process of me taking the transcript of this show, putting it into like ChatGPT or Claude, creating an article, adding the things. My VA
Yeah,
wouldn't like that very much. Put her out of business.
yeah.
She does that.
There you go. So
Yeah.
yeah, it does it at scale where you can create like 70 pieces of content from one URL or one little piece of article or text or content, and
Yeah.
makes it beautiful and
Right.
all
Because
that
it's a
kind of stuff.
content game. It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it really is. So basically with Featurely, I could use this device to do my pre-chat interviews. They're like 15 minutes. It would then give me a transcript. And if I like what I saw, I can send the guy a link to book the show like I did with you. I sent you that video, that
Yep.
email. And then I wouldn't have to have these all over my calendar.
Exactly.
And then with loudaf.ai, is that what it is? Loudaf.ai?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
With that one, I literally could take the transcript of this show and create tons of content, or even, I guess, even a blog article that I write, right? I could drop it in there and say, hey, create more content out of this. Because I found that as I put more content out, and this is what I probably should charge for this, but I do coach a fair amount of colleagues to help them with
Yes.
their business, because attorneys are famous for this. They get busy, right? And they're doing all their work and they stop marketing. They
Right.
stop going to networking events, whatever. And then the business starts going down. And then they got to do it again and whatever. They need a system, right, to keep things going in. So as I create blog articles and I put them out every week and I do the podcast and there's 400 shows and we've created a blog article from this show. Micah, her name is, she will take the transcript. She will create an article, put it on our blog. I'm getting more and more. I mean, I probably get half of my business from the internet now. I used to get none. And it's not like it took over half my business. I mean, it doubled my business. I would think that if people just recognize that putting out content, it's got to be decent content, but it doesn't have to be like something you literally toil over. It's
Right.
ridiculous. It just has this way of like growing on the internet when you have content out there and your name shows up, and somebody literally went to Claude recently and to find a business attorney for whatever they were doing. I came up, me, a solo attorney in Clark, New Jersey, and obviously he's in New Jersey, which is good, but I was just shocked by that. But it just supports my hypothesis.
Yeah, the mere exposure effect.
Yeah.
Showing up, people end up developing a preference for things that they become familiar with and they see all the
Right.
time.
Yeah, and they said this guy must know something because he's showing up everywhere. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know.
You could be teaching a college class on something like this, Mitch, and it's great. You're AEO. You're showing up in AI searches on Claude and ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. Clearly, you're doing something right with your podcast and your social media and your content that's getting out there.
Yeah,
and we love
and
seeing.
Loud AF just amplifies that, right?
Some people say the AF is something a little bit different, but we like to use the alternative as being amplified frequency. But
Nice.
those of our friends from New York and Philly understand exactly what that AF stands for.
I like that. Yeah. So so a lot of the tools you do are around this kind of a marketing strategy, content, freeing up your time to do the things that you should be doing, that kind of stuff. What are some of the other tools that you guys have that are?
Yeah, so we created one called onepagers.ai.
Okay.
So a lot of our colleagues, they're when they go from a discovery call or a meeting with the CEO or somebody on staff, that delta, right, between the discovery call, a Zoom call or a one-on-one meeting, to actually getting the proposal is very important, right? Getting back to somebody to let them know what your understanding of their problems and their situations and the opportunity. It gets it's very important to get to them in a timely fashion.
Right.
So taking something like this device here, it's called the Pocket. It's an AI. You don't need to use an AI or anything like that. You could just use a voice memo and just take that recording and putting it into Claude or into our tool called One Pagers. It will craft a proposal for you right away that you can just send over a PDF to that individual. Not that it's a huge problem, but what we find in the sales aspect of what we do, it's very important. It's often the biggest problem that most people have is in closing deals the follow-up, right?
Yeah.
When you do that, more deals are being made, and that kind of stuff. We've got a lot
of better than just like the transcript from Zoom.
Oh yeah, it's crafted in a style around your product, around your service that identifies the problem as it relates to that particular person and maps it out with a one-click link. Hey, you want to get started? Here's how to check out, or here's how to do a down payment. Let's engage in in an agreement here. What are the next steps, right? And most people, your competition who isn't doing it either, it gives you an immediate leg up and an opportunity for you to win. So yeah, we've got that tool. We've got a bunch of different extensions.
But they're AI tools, basically. Are they subscription services?
Yeah, most are subscription services, reasonable, $40-$50, something like that.
Yeah.
But the dividend on the back end means that you're going to end up, if you're using these tools, you're actually getting length. You're getting mileage out of the tool itself. A good colleague of ours, a friend of ours, business partner of ours, developed something called Leadsly.
Leadsly?
Yes, Leadsly.ai, which is an amazing tool. It's a discovery tool. It's a prospecting tool where if you're looking to, prospect, it builds lists and identifies contact information and allows you to kind of tie things into other softwares where you can do a lot of prospecting, cold outreach, that sort of stuff. Dropping a pixel on your website. So for example, if somebody was coming to, Mitch's website here, we can drop a pixel It's just a little piece of software
Like
that
something I
goes
can't see.
that they can't see when they get to your website.
Right.
And sometimes, the job of a website is to do two different things. One is to make money, and the other is to build a list.
Right.
And if your website doesn't do those two jobs, it's basically useless, right? If somebody goes to your website and they leave, it's technically a lost lead.
Right.
Well, what this pixel does is when Mitch comes to my website and doesn't leave their name, their email address, and opts in for a freebie or picks up the telephone call to call, I want to know who that person is that came to my website. But if I was able to, say, Mitch came to my website, he came here on Wednesday afternoon at 3:03 p.m. in the afternoon, and here's his telephone number and here's his email address and all this kind of stuff. It allows Mitch or whoever the website owner is to follow up and say, "Hey, Mitch, I realized that you came to my website. Is there something that I can help you with? It looks like you came and left. Did we not, convey the information? What are you looking for? How can we help you?" Sort of thing.
Kind of like cookie technology, but you're not dropping anything on their computer. You're just getting data.
Yeah, you're aggregating data, and I wouldn't say overtly reach out to Mitch or whoever that visitor was,
right?
Unless you're okay with that, right? Use an email address, a burner email address, and say, "Hey, I noticed that you came to our website." 50% of those people are going to reply back to you, 50% are not. Right. Or you can take that data and put it into a CSV file and upload it to Facebook and retarget Mitch into an advertisement that, taps into that mirror exposure effect where, Mitch said, "Yeah, I was on that guy's website. And I see more and more of his videos, more and more of his content that's popping up, as we talked about a little bit earlier. If you're constantly, posting to Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all this kind of stuff, and they see more of you, they develop that affinity towards you, and therefore eventually converting into a potential customer and paying customer for you."
Is that why? I don't know if it's similar technology. Like you're looking for what did my wife and I do? Like a new mattress. So you visit a couple of mattress sites. You don't even put your email in, and next thing you know, everywhere you're going, there's mattress ads popping up on Facebook, LinkedIn. You're getting emails about it from companies that you didn't even visit.
Right. Or competitors or similar types of products and stuff like that. Yeah, we're not as overtly douchey when it comes to stuff like that.
Well, they're just trying to sell their products. So
yeah, but you could do something kind of interesting, like, "Hey, I noticed that you popped up on our particular website, and let me teach you about this." And we kind of try to deliver value in our marketing thereafter, is like just generally trying to be helpful and useful. Some people, they've got questions about engaging with an attorney.
Right.
Let me tell you why, and this is the reasons. You just go through your litany of frequently asked questions or whatever, and just break it down the way that Mitch would, right?
Yeah.
So we try to teach how to use the software in that type of manner, so it doesn't come off as, "Oh, these guys are just data scammers," or that sort of
course.
thing.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting, but it's also, I mean, this is a great conversation because you're giving the listeners a lot of things to go check out and to see what's going on. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes on websites and on the internet that everybody's very suspicious about until you're talking to your wife about something you need to buy, and Alexa reminds you to buy toilet paper, and you're like, "Well, how would Alexa know? We were just talking about that the other day," because it's listening. I mean, it's
funny. My Alexa just went off as well
because I said that,
you mentioned
right?
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. And I think now with it, like I think when those kind of tools were coming out, Google and the Amazon one and all those types of things, I think it was very early technology. You were really talking to it, and it was. But now with AI and everything, definitely listening.
Everything's
turn
listening.
That feature off, I guess. But what's the point, right? Why not have it say, "Hey, you were just talking about the other day with your wife about this, this, and this. Maybe you should order it." And you're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that."
Yeah. Make it so. Just make sure it's delivered. Now our air conditioning unit went at our house, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you should probably just order the filter and have it on reorder every 2 months." And I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should just talk to my AI to do that on my behalf. It's just an amazing time for us to be living in.
Yeah. Well, these things like OpenClaw and these other agents that you can build, I'm just learning about how fucking complicated they are. Where
Yeah.
you can literally, I've read some scary stories about these things giving it tasks and then it drawing other conclusions of things that it should be doing to go with those tasks, and then they do it. I heard a story of I don't know, it was office supplies ordering on a regular basis, whatever, and the AI is ordering, and the AI discovered that it was cheaper and quicker for the. Did you hear this story? For the
Yes.
package to be delivered to an Amazon, what was it? One of those hubs. But
Yep.
the AI can't go out and get it, so he hired somebody to go and bring the stuff back. It was nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, I see you wearing Meta Ray-Bans, right? I mean,
I am.
in the future, they won't even be as Ray-Ban looking.
Exactly. And it's the nerdiest look that I could come up with just to let people know that I look nerdy and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
It's
I
going to
used
get
to
less
be,
nerdy, though. The cameras are going to get smaller. The frames are going to get, yeah.
I hope it's funny. My brothers and, some people were making fun of me. And then, I was teaching, a workshop at a chamber of commerce out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And my nephew had a wrestling match in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So they were all making fun of me. I said, "Yeah, but do your glasses make you money?"
Right.
And they're like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I had an entire conversation with my AI and my drive from Lancaster, Pennsylvania down to Willow Grove. I created an entire course, and it was ready for me by the time I got home for me to market to my audience as well, just by having a conversation with ChatGPT over my glasses." And they're like,
That's
"Oh,
nuts.
the glasses don't connect to ChatGPT." I said, "Yeah, but it does connect to WhatsApp, and ChatGPT has an account with WhatsApp." So I was having a conversation through WhatsApp, like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, it's nerdy and stuff. But I did get kicked out of court, though. I went
Yeah,
to
right. You would, because you're not supposed to have recording devices.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that was
put them
kind of
away.
that was kind of interesting. Like it was a little scary when the bailiff or the
Yeah.
guy came up to me like,
He
"Are you
recognized it.
recording?" Yeah, I'm like, totally forgot. Nothing's recording. They're off. I showed them the switch. There's nothing
Yeah.
recording at this moment, but maybe it is. Maybe it's not recording. I don't know.
Yeah.
This technology is only going to get better, faster, quicker.
Oh yeah, no, it's wearable technology. I mean, remember Google Glass was totally a failure, but it was kind of started the whole revolution. And now, wasn't it Snapchat that did something
Yep.
before Meta got involved, and
Yep.
Meta was going to buy the company, and then they said no, and then they did their own thing with Ray-Ban, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Money and power has a lot to do with it. By the way, anybody listening, Drew's from Pennsylvania and Philly because he says it correctly. He says Lancaster.
Right.
People, it's not Lancaster. It's Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Everybody knows that from
That's the way it goes.
Right,
I don't know.
exactly.
Is it? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But
it's spelled Lancaster, but it's not.
Correct.
Nobody from that area pronounces it that way. It's
No.
Lancaster.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so what's the your business plan? I always like to ask people this, like, what's your next strategy? Is there an exit strategy? Do you plan on selling these tools? I mean, literally not selling them for a subscription, like being acquired, that type of stuff. Like, what's the business plan objective?
Yeah, so I think what we've found and discovered is these micro tools that we're building can build a substantial amount of monthly recurring revenue and annual recurring revenue. We are actually in talks on 2 of our software platforms right now, but with private equity. Mm-hmm. I've never been through that before, other than
it's an interesting process, right?
It's a very interesting process, learning process. That it's enjoyable too. We're going through it. I'm sure there's some negative aspects of it as well. But
if you're dealing with good people, it's a good process.
Yeah. So we're going to continue to pursue that and see where things go, and potentially use that as the the plan when we launch our next software is
fuel
beginning
for the fire.
Yeah, and understanding what that end result might be, but as it is right now, having each of the softwares being in the positive, where we're not taking on, private venture at this point yet. We're debt free when it comes to those, to the business itself. That's not a bad position to be in either. So we're not afraid of continuing to generate monthly recurring revenue,
Right.
and acquiring more customers and clients for it. So it's been a pleasurable experience, and we're just curious to see where this whole AI world goes to help us to develop better, faster, quicker with our developers, and our principals.
Did the PE world find you, or like how did that take place?
One
You're
did.
technology driven, so
Yeah, one did, and the other was we had listed it on an exchange, and that was kind of interesting process. And we're still getting, some interest and things of that nature on that exchange. And then the other one was they discovered us and started engaging and having conversations by way of email, and it's been a delight so far on both occasions.
yeah. Well, I mean, if you have a good tool and you got a subscription service, and they're just going to pour gasoline on the fire. That's what they're looking to do. They're like,
Yeah.
well, we have money. What happens if we blow this thing up, and you get millions of users instead of hundreds of thousands? So
Yeah, that's the hope, and we'll see. We'll see where that goes, and any advice that we can get on that kind of stuff is always well appreciated.
all right, so we'll put in the show notes the links to Feature Lead, Loud AF, one pagers. I guess we'll put in Leadsly. It'll show up in the transcript or whatever. What was the thing you mentioned called the Pocket? What was that? You were holding up something on your...
Yeah. So this is a little device that I came across. This is called pocket.ai. I have no affiliation with them, but this is what this is.
You're a user.
Yeah, just a user, and it's this little device. I think it was like $150 or something.
Okay.
But it's like a one-touch button on here. So I don't know if you can see it, but right here, when you press this, it can record the entire conversation. And then what it will do is it'll give you a full summary of your conversation, as well as an entire transcript of it as well. So you can, kind of extract the most important aspects of the conversation, as well as, there's like a little bit of information in there that you remember, but you can't remember exactly off the top of your head. The transcript takes care of that. You can take that and put it into another tool to say, hey, come up with a teaching lesson or a script that I can use to, talk about our podcast or whatever that meeting was all about, to have a better, fuller, complete transcription of what was going on there. So I think it's pocket.ai, no affiliation to them whatsoever, but they've been a delight to work with. You get like 30 days worth of memory in it before
so it holds for the last 30 days.
Yeah. And then if you want to like a subscription where it holds it indefinitely, I don't think it's terribly expensive to do.
So do you take this to like a networking event and you have it in your pocket and you're just talking to people, or does it record like our podcast? I don't need to record that because it's being recorded by Riverside and then my VA takes it over. But is that what it's for? Like in your jacket pocket, just recording what it hears?
Yeah. So often, like sometimes when I'm in this space, I mean, you could do those types of conversations at a meetup, or maybe, even if you're going to a physician,
right.
And you can't know all the medical terminology. You just press one button, and depending on where you are, wiretapping, all that kind of stuff, you just have to be concerned about that kind of stuff.
Right.
But for the most part, I'll just say, hey, would you mind if I record this real quick on my, I always assume that I'm being recorded everywhere.
Right. You're probably paranoid about it now.
Yeah. But I mean, like, even if you're like listening to a very long podcast or an audiobook or something like that, and it records it and you just wanted to extract.
Oh, that's interesting. It's an interesting idea. Yeah.
The essence or the lesson. You're like, yeah, I was listening to this podcast by this guy named Mitch, and he was talking about this, and this, and I never even thought about that. So, I want to talk about this on my next podcast or in my next newsletter or something like that, based upon advice from this. You need to consult your own attorney, but he brought up a really interesting point. I'd love to have more conversation about something like this. So instead of you having to remember it and then going back, if the transcript does something like this for you,
right.
it can help you create content at scale, and make it sound like you actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it like pulls the data out of the air.
Yeah.
Because it's just words that go away.
Yeah,
And
I
this
may or
thing's
may not
not
have
going away.
had, I may or may not have used this in, debates or conversations with my wife.
You probably should. You realize you're wrong.
And that's exactly what I came up with. Like, yeah, I did say that, didn't I?
Yeah,
So
right. Exactly.
totally
So
joking, but not joking.
it's like that. What's that commercial where it's one of the insurance company commercials where they say something like, I didn't say that, really? And they bring in a guy and go to the videotape and they show him.
Yeah.
You said this. He's like, oh.
Let's go back to the review, and you got the referee
Yeah.
looking inside. Yeah.
Yeah,
According
that's basically what it is.
it's exactly what it is. But
What's the best way, Drew, for people like to connect with you, to learn about you, what you're doing? Are you on LinkedIn? Do you have your own website, company, whatever?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You just look up Drew Griffin. It's LinkedIn. Whatever the extension is Drew M Griffin.
Got it.
But I think if you wanted to learn about some of the cool stuff that we're in, you want to investigate this other stuff, head over to localnewsletterlaunchpad.com.
Okay.
It's totally free for anyone to join. There's some dates listed on there, but they're kind of old dates. That essentially brings you into a school group. School.com, SKOOL.com is the platform that our community is in. We teach all about newsletters. We've got live cohorts going off all the time and recordings of those, entirely free to take. We do talk about some of the softwares from time to time. If you want to do things better, faster, quicker, here are some of the things that we talk about, and we typically give discounts all the time to some of the tools that we talked about.
Local today. Is big. It's a big URL. Localnewsletterlaunchpad.com.
Yes, it is a long URL, but it seemed to be most memorable.
You just got to type it out. Got
right.
It. All right, cool. Well, Drew, I can't thank you enough. Spending time with me. I said this at the beginning, not knowing what we were going to talk about, but that's what this is all about, right? Having good conversations that bring valuable information to people, hopefully help you connect with people, hopefully help me connect with people, but also maybe just help people, right? Just if they check out these tools and they get involved and they can learn stuff and see all the ways all this technology is really is the advent of the small business owner. I mean, you really can do so much stuff as a small solo, business owner, where you don't need to hire people and set up cubicles and rent an office, and you can really do a lot of stuff. I assume most of your guys are virtual, right? You don't have an office with people, do you? They're all
no, everything's virtual.
Yeah.
We trim the fat, and we're much more efficient this way. And our people are great. We've got developers in other countries,
people anywhere, right? Yeah.
And most of the time, people don't want to be traveling to an office in order to do so.
Yeah, they don't want to go to Philadelphia.
No, but I don't want to go to Philly.
Oh, I love it. All right, just so you know, so we went. I wasn't at any of the Philly games, but I flew down to my son in Dallas, and we drove to San Antonio for Game 2.
Oh, nice.
We saw it. And it was so many New York fans there. It was crazy.
It was a takeover.
It's like 40%. Well, maybe 40% of the stadium was Knicks. It got very loud as they came back at the end and won. Yeah. I was at the game where he threw the ball into his back and Brunson ended up, with the ball and got fouled. That was crazy.
I'm sure. Great
Hopefully
memories.
It won't be another 53 years, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, you're 1-0 is the way that I look at it.
Exactly. All right, Drew. Awesome. I wish you the best weekend, and thanks for spending almost an hour with me on the podcast.
Mitch, would love to reciprocate and have you on ours, and we'll catch up soon.
What's the name of your show, by the way?
Yeah, basically it's just a local newsletter. We don't really have a podcast per se, but we, we'll bring you into the community and interview you and all that other kind of stuff.
Let's do it. I always love to share thoughts and ideas and expertise.
Awesome, Mitch. Well, enjoy the rest of this weekend. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on.
Thanks, Drew.
How can you help us, though, continue to help you? First, please subscribe to the channel. Like us. If you listen to the audio version, leave us a 5-star review wherever you can. If you see our posts, please share those posts, share the content, and link back to our law firm website, which helps us to continue our SEO marketing and grow our firm and help small business owners.